Funeral home employees, owners of Reddit, what's the most ridiculous outfit you've seen someone buried in? My great-aunt was buried in her 100 Jazzercise classes taken t-shirt. She was super proud of it. So it was fitting. Love that woman. Clown suit. I kid you not. I sang at a funeral where the man wanted to be buried with his bar stool from a local pub. He'd been a regular for years. And the pub acquiesced. It was weird to sing to a bar stool at the graveside portion of the funeral. As I remember, it had red leather inset on the seat. My uncle was cremated in a shirt with a bunch of flames on it. It wasn't planned though. In my grandpa's case, the outfit was his birthday suit and a treasured blanket. When my grandpa died a few years ago, it was his wish that he be buried naked and wrapped in his favorite blanket. A blanket that my grandma hand-made for him decades ago. Thankfully, the funeral home was very understanding of his wishes and had him in the casket naked with the blanket around him for his viewing and subsequent burial. My mom was an avid bridge card game player. Our sweet funeral director researched a good winning hand in bridge. Mom was cremated holding her winning hand. Not a funeral home, but I went to a family friend's funeral where the guy was just shirtless. He had a blanket covering up to his chest, so I'm not sure if he had pants. Fancy nightdress and matching robe. This 70-plus-year-old lady, or maybe it was her husband's preference, wanted to be buried in this glamorous vintage night dress set that you would see in an old movie. It had feather accents and matching kitten heel slipper things. She also was buried in her costume jewelry. Her regular hairdresser came in to do her hair and cried the entire time. The decedent was quite old and I think had been sick for a while, so the nightdress fit loosely, so we used double-sided tape and a few simple stitches to the nightdress to try to keep everything where it should go. It was a weird request, but I thought it was interesting. And, to the staff's surprise, her family seemed to expect this as something totally normal. Pretty cool. My mom was a casual lady who excelled at dog rescue. When she passed, it didn't make sense to put her in a dress or suit, so she was cremated in her favorite comfy jeans and a "You'll Never Walk Alone" dog rescue t-shirt. We put a bottle of Imodium in my dad's pocket just in case he got the shits in the afterlife. Funeral director thought we were bonkers. Not ridiculous so much as weird from the outside. My grandfather was buried with a folded-up bunch of paper towels stuffed up his sleeve. He was one of those guys who always had something for spills and runny noses. And he always had paper towels or tissues with him. Turns out he had started keeping them in his sleeves when he was younger, just in case he ever needed them. And with 5 kids and 11 grandkids, he always needed them. When he died, his sons decided it would be very fitting if he had some paper towels with him. So that's how he was during his viewing and service. Everyone is panic buying TP while my man is calm, cool and collected, knowing he has the ace up his sleeve. Shortly before my nan passed away, she emailed me a picture of her new sandals she bought. She got 2 pairs in 2 different colors, so the picture was her with one of each on. It was only fitting that we dressed her in those. She'd laugh if she knew. My dad was a firefighter. He died of lung cancer when I was 21. We decided to cremate him in his formal uniform, but my mom came out in front of our house full of family and friends with his large collection of superhero boxers and said, "The Flash or the Hulk?" It was a really great moment to lighten the mood and brought his goofier side right back to life. We chose the Flash, by the way. My uncle was buried in a Santa Claus outfit, and I can say I'm scorned forever for Christmas. All I could think about was a Santa zombie chasing people. My grandpa was buried in bib overalls and a plaid shirt. He was just a simple farmer, and that's how he wanted to be seen for the last time. The Walking Dead t-shirt. Family had a great sense of humor. My grandma wanted to be buried in powder blue PJs because she wanted to be comfortable. So that's exactly what we did, and she looked great. My first husband was an avid fisherman. His parents insisted he be buried in a suit, but his favorite outfit was a pair of khaki shorts and a yellow basebro shirt. I asked the funeral director to put that outfit underneath the suit, and no one was the wiser. I put a couple of his favorite lures and his most well-loved pipe in his pocket. I don't doubt for a moment that the crematorium disposed of those items, but at least I knew I did right by him. I don't doubt for a moment that the crematorium disposed of those items, but at least I knew I did right by him. The light to last the night. Your pipe. Your lures on silver strings. I hope I did you right. My father always used to tell me he wanted his dead body stuffed and placed in the lobby of an adult movie theater. As a kid I did not understand what was funny about this. And now he denies he ever said it. A friend of mine worked in the funeral business. She said a woman died and her husband and family were at odds. They felt like he killed her but they had no proof of it. Anyway, he had them dress her in a tiny sundress and asked for her breast implants because, quote, "I paid for them so they're mine." She said it was creepy and she felt so bad for the woman's family. My grandfather always wore those Dickie jumpsuits. When he passed, all the grandkids wanted to bury him in his favorite one, light blue. But my grandmother quickly put a stop to that. My great-grandmother worked as a clown. Like, she attended a clown college and everything. She loved her job very much. She was buried dressed as a clown, with the makeup and everything. Slightly off topic, but my grandpa passed away last week and we had his visitation funeral on Thursday, Friday. At the funeral home, the director asked when the last time he'd worn a suit was. We said it was probably for my grandma's funeral 6 months earlier. Apparently there were cookies in the pocket of the pants. Completely appropriate, given my grandpa was a child at heart who loved ice cream, cookies, and candy. We left the cookies in there. My grandma decluttered some of my grandpa's clothes one time. In the box to get donated was this green velvet suit that he had held onto from the 60s or 70s. When he saw that she wanted to donate it, he got all upset, saying that he still liked it and wanted to keep it. She said, "Well, you can keep it, but if you do, I'm going to put that suit on you when I bury you." He ended up letting her donate it. I kinda wish he had kept it though, because it sounds like it was an awesome suit. An old lady spent 40-odd years in her local church choir, so the family asked the choir if they could have her choir robe to bury her in, as it meant more to her than any of her ordinary clothes. When my parents died, my sister and I had to choose the clothes. Mom's was a simple dress she wore to church. My dad always wore cowboy boots. We chose his blue suit but couldn't find his black boots. We sent the brown ones, but I was beyond bothered about it. Found the black ones before the first viewing and had them changed out. My father would never have worn brown boots with his navy blue suit. It's one of my requests to have my shoes tied together when I'm buried. If my corpse ends up coming back to zombie-terrorized society, I want people to have every advantage against my reanimated remains. Not a funeral home worker, but when my dad died we sent his favorite Crocs for his feet. They were Ohio State University merch, and he often wore them to church to preach in. Yes, you read that right. My dad was a pastor who preached in Ohio State University Crocs. He also had a hideous shirt that my mom tucked into the casket with him. My mom had tried to get rid of it several times, but my dad had a sixth sense and always rescued it from the donation pile. She didn't bury him in it because it didn't fit him anymore, but she let him take it with him. My grandmother had a deck of cards for 60+ years. They were frayed, stained, and you could barely read them. She refused to use any of the nice fancy new cards we gave her and never shared the story as to why they were so important to her. She was buried with those cards. It seemed like such a tender and intimate moment to place them next to her as if they were a huge token of her memories that were never meant to be shared. It's been 20 years. I still miss her beyond words. I buried my late husband in a Superman t-shirt and his favorite camo pants and boots. He wore his camos when he went to chemotherapy. He called them his battle pants. I put in a poker chip from one of his mates, his BlackBerry, and a toy from our daughter. I always wonder what the archaeologists would make of it if he was ever exhumed. My grandmother was raised Seventh-day Adventist and believed in the resurrection. When my grandfather died, I laid out his best clothes and his dress cowboy boots, which he loved. My grandma hated those boots, so she said, "Oh no, they don't bury people with shoes on." So I acquiesced and grandpa went into the ground in his socks. I am sure she was worried she would have to spend eternity with him in those boots. Put the boots on her when she goes. When my great-grandmother died, her wish was to be buried with her husband who had been cremated about 14 years earlier. But it's illegal here to bury two people in one grave unless it's asked like years before they die. So my grandmother had this plan. She had a pillow made of G-grandmother's wedding dress. So my grandmother put G-grandfather's ashes into the pillow. And when we could say our last farewells, we asked the funeral man, I don't know what it's called in English, if we could change the original pillow for this one. He agreed, and we were trying so hard not to laugh, because we were smuggling G-grandfather, who was dressed in a wedding dress, into the coffin illegally. And I swear I could hear grandmother laugh through the wind. But that's a story for another time. Her funeral was wild. When my husband passed away, I put a joint and a lighter in his pocket. Strangely, he passed away on April 20, 16. He loved the ganja.